Good evening and welcome to the ChrisInformation podcast. The foundation of a free republic is the neutrality of its institutions. But over the last decade, we've watched that foundation crumble, replaced by a partisan architecture designed to crush political opposition. And it did not start yesterday. The blueprint was drawn in 2016 with the Russiagate scandal, a fabricated narrative weaved by intel agencies revealed by the Durham report to be a hoax built on nothing but political spite. From there, the floodgates opened. We saw the weaponization of the impeachment process, transitioning from a grave constitutional necessity into a recurring theatrical performance. We saw the FBI, the nation's premier law enforcement agency, pivot its resources to target traditionalist Catholics, recasting religious devotion as a national security threat in disturbing internal FBI memos. But the weaponization isn't limited to the halls of Congress or the offices of the Bureau. It extends to the privatized censorship and defamation complex, specifically the Southern Poverty Law Center. Once an organization that staked its claim focusing on civil rights, the SPLC has devolved into a hub for manufactured hate. They use their hate map not as a tool for public safety, but as a manifesto for deplatforming parental rights groups and religious organizations alike. Most damning are the recent revelations and federal indictments from earlier this month, alleging that the SPLC literally manufactured the extremism it purports to fight. The justice system has revealed that for years, this organization diverted millions in donor funds through shell companies to pay the leaders of radical groups, effectively hiring extremists to act as controlled opposition. They subsidized the very hate they needed to justify their own existence and fundraising efforts. The Proud Boys have been a central fixture in this manufactured rhetoric. The SPLC labeled the group a hate group as early as 2018, citing their Western chauvinist stance as a pseudonym for extremism. Of course, they pointed to incidents like the 2018 Metropolitan Republican Club clash to paint the entire organization as a paramilitary wing, lobbying tech giants to strip every member of their digital footprint. By recasting adherence to traditional values as hate, the SPLC provided the intellectual cover for the federal overreach that ensued. By January 6th, the line between prosecution and persecution had been blurred completely. While we have and will always advocate for law and order, the disparity in how justice is applied in this country has become impossible to ignore, and it's been like that for a while. While some cities burned with impunity during the Summer of Love, others were met with the full, unrelenting weight of the federal government. As we moved into the mid-2020s, the rhetoric reached a fever pitch, culminating in multiple disastrous attempts on Donald Trump's life. Where are the investigations on that, by the way? When the state and its allies in the media label an individual an existential threat long enough, the fringes act on that signal. We've watched the expansion of the surveillance state under the guise of protecting democracy, while the very tools meant to protect us are turned against the citizenry. We are standing in 2026, and the question is no longer if the government has been weaponized, but who is left to stand against it. Many of those who spoke the loudest have paid the heaviest price, becoming the primary targets of a system that no longer recognizes protests as a right, but as an insurrection. A man who has been singled out as a primary target of this coordinated effort, experiencing firsthand the collusion between activist nonprofits and federal prosecutors, joins us in just a moment to discuss the reality of the justice system from the inside. So, without any further ado, 2023 Vulture, which is a fitting name for an entertainment news outlet,
joining us now, Chris Cella.
For me on Capitol Hill and from the halls of Congress, he is on top of all the stories. Don't miss the ChrisInformation podcast.
Today we are sitting down with a man who has been at the absolute center of a political storm for the better part of a decade. He is the shogun of the Proud Boys, a man the establishment tried to bury. J6 prisoner Enrique Tarrio. Enrique, thank you so much for joining the program.
Thank you, ChrisInformation, which I think is a brilliant name for a show. I saw you type it earlier, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty catchy. But Chris, we've known each other for years. I really appreciate you, and it's true. There's no misinformation. I think ChrisInformation is the information that people should be consuming because it's the truth.
Hey man, I coming from you, I really really appreciate that. So Enrique, you are the the leader of the Proud Boys, and that group has been maligned in the media. I want to read a couple quotes here from here's one from Joy Reid. Joy Reid, one of the biggest racists of all time. The Proud Boys are not just a drinking club; they are a neo-fascist gang of street brawlers who act as shock troops for a dangerous brand of authoritarianism. They thrive on provocation and physical violence to silence their political opponents. So, tell us in your words, who are the Proud Boys? Why were they founded?
So let's start by this. Joy Reid and her ilk should have a reason to fear the Proud Boys, not in any violent way. But I think we did have a hand in changing the culture, this right-wing culture from your everyday Republican politics that was on basically life support for a very long time. So I appreciate her words. Now, what are the Proud Boys? And I always say this: it would be if you had another Proud Boy in this seat, he'd probably answer you differently. And the reason why I tell you that is because we're not a very focused group. We're a group that's just focuses on one thing, and it's make better men. And how do you make better men? You make better husbands, better neighbors, better brothers, better sons. So all of us have a different focus. You know, people see the things that we do when it comes to like defending Trump supporters from it, like Antifa and BLM. But that's only like 10% of our guys that's their focus. The other focus is on different things like entrepreneurship, building, getting men and making them kill their masters, which their main masters are boss. So I just say to tell you just simply is it's a group. It's a men's fraternal drinking organization. We're not a political organization. I'd say we're just here to make better men. That's it.
Well, you you guys did have a lot of run-ins with Antifa, and obviously you were framed very much in the political ecosystem. So yeah, I think I think I totally hear what you're saying, but I think most people do see it as I think most outsiders see it as a political group. But to hear you say that, I think is comforting because it's a lot of people saw it as a kind of a reaction to Antifa as basically a military organization, militarized organization that was designed to combat Antifa. I think that shedding that narrative that that's not what the Proud Boys are is important.
Yeah, I think so too. And then just to talk about that thing that we focused on protecting Trump supporters,
right?
And it did us very good because look, we don't attack first. It's always in self-defense or the defense of others. And to tell you, it's also been like a great marketing branch. Like we've gotten a lot of people that join because they see the videos, but when they actually join, they see, oh wait, hold on, this is not what I thought it was. This isn't like a underground fight club. This is a group of guys, and we have a really good retention with our members. And look, the reason why I say we're not a political group, because like American values isn't really like a political stance, right? It's just it's a general stance, like to when we're talking about like liberties, right? That you're given your God given rights, which is where our rights come from. That's always been like a focus of ours, and people see that, and that's why we're popular. That's why we've remained popular. You don't see us out in the streets as much anymore because you also don't see that many black bloc Antifa out on the streets as you once did. There's multiple reasons for that. One, we made it very painful for them to attack other Trump supporters. And two, something that we advocated for a very long time is to put Antifa on the domestic terrorist list, and the president has done that. It took 4 years from our first, actually 5 years from our first end domestic terrorism rally that we held in Portland in 2019 for the president to go ahead and do that. Obviously, he took a little hiatus there for 4 years. But for the most part, what we were advocating for, we're getting with this president.
I think that the designation of Antifa as a terrorist organization is very, very important because I was at an Antifa rally and I met with, and this was his official title, the violence coordinator for the group. He was wearing like a beekeeper's mask. You couldn't see his face. All black, he's like, 6'2", probably like, 300 pounds, very overly nourished individual. And he basically told me that, he is in charge of organizing the rallies near the Trump rallies, so they're designed to be able to ambush people as they're leaving them. And I mean, I was so astonished to just hear someone just come out and say that. And so you're right. I mean, these people, they are terrorists. They're attacking people simply because they, and again, even if, and that's not what MAGA rallies are, even if it was a bunch of people holding up swastikas and saying Hail Hitler, that's their right. You still can't attack them on the street. Not that that's not what MAGA is, and everybody I think knows that by now. That talking point has been burnt out. But I want to move on to obviously January 6th. So this is what you were charged with, if I'm not mistaken. You were charged with seditious conspiracy, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an official proceeding, conspiracy to prevent officers from discharging duties, obstruction of law enforcement during civil disorder, destruction of government property, and then prior to January 6th, you were arrested for burning a Black Lives Matter flag. I just want to let our audience know you were not present at the Capitol on January 6th. But
that is correct. Yeah.
Go ahead. So if you could, just kind of explain how they can charge you with, I get conspiracy, you're the quote-unquote ringleader. I get how they can come up with that, but how can they then charge you with the crime itself if you weren't there?
Well, like you said, Chris, look, it doesn't go past me what conspiracy is. Like, example, Osama bin Laden wasn't there, right? And he planned the bombings, and I'm not comparing myself to Osama bin Laden, but just a reference that people get when it comes to that. Well, they treated me like Osama bin Laden.
Yeah, I mean, you might as well have been, that's how they treated you.
So that's not past me what a conspiracy is. The problem with a conspiracy is like you need some type of evidence of planning, right? And there was none, right? And I actually explained this to a lawyer today. If there was a law that's like would say it would be an unconstitutional law, but that you can't celebrate the events of January 6th, like I'd be guilty of that, because I did. I celebrated it that day as I was seeing it happen, and I'm guilty. You know what? You want to give me time for that? That's fine. I had two methods of communications that they used in the case. and one was my private messages with the Proud Boys that were there that day, right? And the second one was my Parler account. And for those that don't know what Parler, it's kind of like Twitter, but it was a lot bigger at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And so they used this evidence, my Parler posts. They didn't really use my communications with the guys. And they used it as, oh, look, he's telling the guys what to do. And before the show, we were talking about how much of a nerd I am with Star Wars. Funny as it may be, it was a Star Wars quote that got me in trouble with January 6th. I had put a GIF of the Emperor, and I said, do what must be done, right? Take the country back. And so my argument in court is like, well, wait a second, because they said, well, look, that shows that he's telling them to do what must be done. Well, wait a second. Why didn't I send the guys the message directly? Like, why would I put it out in public?
Exactly.
Why wouldn't I send the guys and tell the guys, do what must be done? You know, why didn't I do that? Because it just didn't make sense.
Mastermind, conspirator, right? I mean,
like, they made me sound super cool, right? They made me sound a lot cooler than I actually am. I wish I was half as cool as they make me out to be. But like, if I'm a master at coordinating coups, like, wouldn't I be messaging my guys, hey, I like direction or at least inspiration? There was none of that in my case. So, but this is why they got me. And I'm the only one out of all 1,600 defendants that wasn't there. And I obviously got the longest sentence of anybody there.
22 years, correct?
22. That's a life sentence. But the reason why they did it is we were the most marketable indictment besides the president of the United States. And they needed that power. And I know you were around at that time. There was this energy that the MAGA movement had in that November and December, like during that time that they stole the election. There was this energy that came about that I had never seen before. It was true grassroots energy, passion, and that needed to be stopped because that was a force to be reckoned with. And then January 6th happened. And look, I don't see January 6th as like a win for Republicans. It made a lot of people scared. It made a lot of people not want to go out and leave the house. It made people not want to say certain things because they're like, wait, hold on. If they got Enrique Tarrio and he wasn't there, they're going to come get me for my words too. So if I could go back and take it away, I would. But you know, God has ways of putting things together for a reason. And now we have a second term of Donald Trump, actually third term, because we got to see how bad it was without Trump for 4 years. They needed to concoct the Fedsurrection. They needed to stop that movement. They needed to silence the MAGA movement. Unfortunately for them, they overplayed their hand that they were given. This gift that they were given with January 6th, as always, you could always count on Democrats to screw things up. They were given like this awesome tool to use against right-wingers, but they over-prosecuted, they overcharged and over-sentenced these cases, and it made it a rallying cry to like, this was one of Trump's main policies coming into pardon the J6ers.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. So I'm thankful to the Nancy Pelosi's. I'm thankful to Adam Schiff. I'm thankful for making this so outrageous that your regular working class American citizen that just didn't like what happened on January 6th, like they're like, oh well, I don't like what happened. They made them completely flip and turn into people that said, no, we got to free these people. Because, wow, why would you give somebody that wasn't there 22 years? So I'm thankful to that judge for giving me 22 years. I'm extremely thankful to that judge.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, they overplayed their hand. They were given a gift. The Proud Boys, they already had, they'd been tarnished in the media. The SPLC had you labeled as a on their little hate map. Everything was in place. frame you guys as the villains and to throw lock you up and throw away the key, but to again sentence someone to what is essentially, like you said, a life sentence, 22 years in prison when they weren't even at the event. And then you see, grandmothers who were let into the Capitol by Capitol police officers being arrested, and then you see people's banking information being taken by the federal government, and it's all this other stuff that they just couldn't. It's like you give a mouse a cookie, then they're going to need milk. And that, the Democrats, they just give them an inch and they'll take a mile. And yeah, they hung themselves with their own rope.
And that's what they're going to do now. That's what they're going to do now, Chris. Let me predict the future really quick, briefly.
Go ahead.
I think Republicans get a shellacking midterms. And as soon as the Democrats get in power, they're not going to do like regular people stuff. They're going to go overboard. They're going to try to impeach the president for a third time, which would be a gift to Republicans because nobody gives a crap about impeachments anymore. They mean nothing. They might impeach him like 2 or 3 times before he leaves office again. And that will be a uniting factor in the conservative movement that seems fractured.
Well, yeah. Let's talk about that since you just brought that up. The MAGA movement is fractured over. I would say probably the biggest thing right now, the Iran war, but there are other things. The Epstein files and some other things that have some conservatives frustrated. And so let's start with, I guess, the Iran war. How do you think, or the Iran conflict, how do you think this is shaping out? And do you think Donald Trump made the right decision?
I think the president did make the right decision. I supported the strikes from the beginning. I didn't want to see boots on the ground. We haven't seen that yet. That's yet to be determined. I don't think he's going to put boots on the ground. Will it make me lose support for the president? Absolutely not. Like that's, I prefer not to, right? But I also think that people aren't not measuring. I think they're not remembering what this president said in the campaign trail and through his first term. He did say no new wars. He didn't say that he was going to take it easy on Iran. As a matter of fact, he's said numerous times he's going to, and we could quote him one time that said he's going to bomb the shit out of them. So I've known that from the beginning and I accept it. It's also not my beat, right? My beat is more domestic issues. It won't make me break with the president, but I know a lot of people on both sides of this argument. And I think they're both wrong. I think there's a side that is like, no, he said no new wars, no intervention, blah, blah, blah. He's never said that, dude. So let's stop that. Oh, he's a simp for Israel. The other side, no matter what the president does, they go ahead and they get on their knees and they're like, yes, whatever you do, Mr. President. He could do no wrong. And both of them are idiots. The MAGA movement prides itself in independent thought, right? And that's a gift and a weakness at the same time when it comes to these issues. I think the center of this argument doesn't come from Iran; it's an Israel thing. So
you're right. I think you're
but
right.
It's the same thing. There's one side that no matter what, Israel does nothing wrong, which is completely stupid. Because you're not talking about the United States. You're not talking about its president. Because there I understand. I'm like, all right, whatever. You're being loyal to the commander in chief. But to be loyal to another country, that's not for me. And then the opposite side of that coin is kind of like, well, everything Israel does is evil. And that's stupid too.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I am not a Jew hater. I am not an Israel hater. As a matter of fact, I envy Israel. They are pushing every button and pulling every lever to do what's best for their country, no matter what, right?
That's sure, yeah.
And like you expect them to spy on other countries, including ours. That's what countries do. That's what their foreign ministry does. That's what the CIA does here. So that's not something that's new. What people should be mad at are American politicians that no matter what Israel does is right and we're going to back them. That's wrong. Period. That's wrong. So it's wrong to hate them because they're doing the best for their country. They're gonna bring Big Brother to the schoolyard every time. They gotta fight the bully, right? They're gonna bring Big Brother. Do you blame them? No, you can't blame them. But we can't. And you know who said it
You've got
best?
the big guns behind you. Why not use them? I mean, I totally, from their perspective, I understand everything that they do, whether I agree with it or not. Of course, it's not necessarily sometimes in the best interest of my country, but again, from an Israeli perspective, absolutely.
Of course, it's right. Joe Kent said it the best. I don't know if you caught that interview with him and Tucker. I know Tucker doesn't have a lot of fans now. Well, Tucker has a lot of fans. But regardless, his interview with Joe Kent was actually I'm still a fan. Tucker, the Joe Kent interview was kind of deep because he showed me something that I didn't think of. The Israelis have like a low bar when it comes to throwing bodies, like Israeli bodies at a conflict, right? Their threshold for war is much lower than ours, right? And it's because of the region they're in and the situations that are brewing across them. Like that's also understandable, but our bar is so much higher before we put boots on the ground or put our service members at risk, and it should always be high, especially when dictating, whether we should go somewhere or not. Like the Ayatollah should have gotten a bomb planted on his head a long time ago. I'd say in the first term. There's a lot of evidence that shows that they were trying to assassinate the president of the United States. And they've ran proxy groups that have killed Americans before, and that should be met with force. But our threshold to go in conflict in the Middle East should not depend on the Israeli threshold. It should depend on American thresholds set at a very high bar. So I think that we need to understand the relationships of both countries. And I don't like using the word ally with any other country outside of the United States. I say partner, regional partner, trade partner, things like that. Like I'm with that. I'm with that. But we can't fall for what the dude on the internet is telling us, no matter who it is. No matter who it is. And we need to think for ourselves, and we need to put the interests of our country first. And if I had to lean one way, I'd lean more Tucker than I do Laura Loomer,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm totally with you there. But again, everyone, there's so many influencers out there, and they all, very many of them have agendas and are often being paid to say what they say. So, just take it with a grain of salt and, do your own thinking and do your own
I'll tell you,
creative research.
your audience could listen to me because I'm broke. So I don't take money from anybody, right? Always go with the guy that you know for sure doesn't take the money from people and just speaks his mind.
Exactly. Because you know that he's giving you his opinion. There's no one pulling any strings. So I want to also ask you about the mass deportations. So there's been a GOP rep introduced basically what amounts to a mass amnesty bill. Donald Trump promised 1 million deportations a year. That was a very, very ambitious goal. But how do you think he's doing on that? And can he should he step it up, ramp it up? How should he do it?
Okay, so I did a show on this about 2 weeks ago, and I looked at the actual numbers. There's also numbers for self-deportations, and we also have to count the ones that didn't want to cross the border because Donald Trump is in power. So there's a net negative. But the answer to your question is always going to be, we want more deportations, right? We want more, we want more, we want more. I saw the new DHS secretary. I always screw up his name because I mix it up with that libertarian from Colorado, Mullen. Is it Mullen?
Yeah, Mark Wayne Mullen. Yeah.
Mark Wayne Mullen. And he said something. He said he had 2 interviews that kind of like struck me a little odd. I like Noam, you know? I like Noam. I'm not going to lie. She did the Barbie thing, but like there was like energy and there was deportations. Did I want more? Obviously. But this guy, he gets on Fox News. And again, I'm just judging him by his own words. I haven't looked at what his numbers look like after I think he's only been a week on the job, or a week and a half on the job. But he's like, oh, America is a nation of immigrants, blah, blah, blah. And then he also said that he doesn't want to market the deportations. Like he doesn't want, like, I thought it was cool that they were showing people, hey, we're doing our job. And that you could be like, oh, well, they were doing it in a crazy way. Well, I still want to see it. I still want that transparency, that you guys are doing your job. So I'll judge him by the numbers, but when it comes to the deportations, the answer is always, I want more, right? But I think we've done good. I think he's hit his mark. I think that's what we're looking at as far as numbers go. And actually what we're looking at, because we called Obama the deporter in chief, but if you look at the numbers, he's getting close to Obama's 8 years in a year and change. Would I like to see more? Yes, I would. I don't have that. I usually have the panel on me for my show, but I don't have it, or else I'd show you the numbers. The numbers look pretty good. I'm not going to lie.
So in mass, in true mass deportations, I think a lot of people who may not have the stomach for it, because there was obviously the tragic death of 2 individuals, and of course the media ran with that and was able to kind of market that. I think the reason that Mullen said what he said about not wanting to advertise is because of the huge backlash that they did get from the advertising campaign and her lying about it and all that stuff. And so he's like, hey, we're not going to do that. But I think it is important to show that, yes, we are doing our job, and yes, we are getting people out of the country. Are YouTube ads the best way to go about it? I don't really know. I mean, I'm not the expert, but and I'll leave it to them to decide. But mass deportations are really gonna be it's gonna be messy. It's gonna be rough. There are gonna be videos of crying women, and if you really truly want to get the numbers that Trump is talking about, I mean, don't you think that it's gonna look pretty bad in just from an outside perspective? Again, they're doing their jobs, but it's gonna be pretty messy.
Look, and you're mirroring exactly something I said on my show. What needs to be done is very ugly, right? It's very ugly. It doesn't look pretty. I'm not saying be violent or anything. I'm saying the amount of mass deportations that's needed to put this country in the right path just doesn't look pretty, and it's not supposed to look pretty. It's that antidote where we talk about medicine, where good medicine doesn't taste good, right? And actually, I was talking to Tommy Robinson about deportations in England, and I'm like, look, in order to save your country, I mean, it's got to look like the crusade of deportations. You got to like massively get people out to fix the situation in the country, and it doesn't look pretty. Do I want those numbers to double and triple? Yeah, of course. Do I want realistic numbers? Yes. But yeah, look, I think maybe a different way to show the American people the transparency, besides just put the numbers out, is important. I think we've changed the culture enough where like that shock value needs to be put in front of people's eyes. in order for people to see what's needed. Look, I haven't been a big fan of Pam Bondi for a long time, but I give credit where credit's due. The homicide rates in the United States have plummeted. They've caught a shit ton of sex traffickers and things like that.
Yeah.
A shit ton of pedophiles. Those are great numbers. Those are historic numbers. But we didn't really hire Pam Bondi just for that. We wanted, deep state arrests. But I'm
true
accountability
for the people who orchestrated one of the biggest political attempted coups of all time, and then just the biggest political prosecution of an adversary, a political opponent in our nation's history by a long shot. And I mean, we're talking about multiple separate events: the Russia hoax, the Ukraine impeachments, then the sham indictments, and the attempted assassination, which we still have at least I have a lot of questions about and haven't really gotten many answers to it. But hopefully those will come. And you're right. Again, it's like when you have under Biden, thousands of people pouring into the country every single day. I mean, it's like, of course, after 4 years of that, it's gonna take a lot, and it's gonna take, like you said, a crusade to really, I mean, if we want to get all of those people out of the country, it's gonna be a struggle. But I just want to quickly touch on, there is the weaponization working group, which is actively reviewing, past prosecutions. As someone who's been a target of that, do you think that the Trump administration is doing enough to root out, the lawfare that has been, and the weaponization of politics that has been waged for, the better part of a decade?
I will tell you that when we're talking about the weaponization working group specifically in the DOJ, they fired the number one crusader. I'll use that word again. They took out of that working group the number one crusader that was in there, and his name's Ed Martin. I don't know who was responsible for that. I don't know if it was Bondi. But for the most part, we need somebody that's a bulldog when it comes to this weaponization. I will tell you something though. Bondi's been out for about a week, and Todd Blanche is interim. And I haven't had nice words for Blanche since January of this year. That's when I started hearing directly from people there that were blaming Blanche. But this week, we're starting to see a lot of wins accumulate in just 7 days. Tuesday of this week. I don't know when you're going to air this, but recently, the Proud Boys case is getting thrown out along with the Oath Keepers case, meaning we don't need any pardons. Right? There's a process that goes behind it, but basically that's the government's position. The DOJ's took that position, the same position as the president. So we might see a brighter DOJ and a more active DOJ. Time will tell. There's some good players in there. Harmeet Dillon, Ed Martin's still in there. Stanley Woodward is still in there too. So we're seeing a lot more action from them in a week. What does that look like a couple months from now? I'll be just as critical of the new DOJ as I was of the 1.0 DOJ if they don't do their job. Loyalty to the president doesn't mean I'm loyal to his appointees. I like to hold them accountable to their words and to the president's high bar. And here's another thing why I think that they're going to start working. Their boss just got shit canned. And that was probably a message from the president. Like, she didn't do it. You better do it. Because we only got 2.5 years left.
Yeah. And if we get shellacked in the midterms, as you predicted, we're going to lose, the House, potentially the Senate as well, which is going to tie up things and make things very difficult for the president to execute and for the DOJ to execute with the Democrats in power. But it can still be done. And yeah, I think the biggest disappointment with Pam Bondi was the lack of accountability that we saw with James Comey and Letitia James skating on a technicality because of because of incompetence on that's what it comes down to on behalf of the DOJ. I mean, they had Comey dead to rights. He perjured himself, and so it is very, very frustrating. And I hope we do see accountability in the future. And I also just want you to quickly, if you don't mind, touching on how you feel about the Epstein files, the rollout from beginning to end, and the fact that we still don't have all of the files, and that much of it is still redacted, the ones we do have.
So let's start with I'm just going to start with a general statement. The Epstein files isn't my beat, right? I'm a working dude. I don't have time to dig in. From what I see, they're horrible. And it is a priority, right? Because it's not like, even if it's not my beat, I hear other people, and that's something that they're passionate about, and it's righteous passion. And I think the beginning of the end for Bondi was they're on my desk, right? Don't tell Americans they're on your desk and then force Congress to pass a law to release the Epstein files and then slow roll it. On top of everything, slow roll it, right? Redact the names of the victims, right? Redact identifying information of the victim, right? Blonde hair, 23, lives in yada, yada. Like, I get it. Take all that shit down. And then release it to the public, put it on the internet, and let people sift through it. And then look, I think the president got a lot of shit for saying that it's a hoax. But I think all those people that think that, I won't say that they haven't been Trump supporters for a long time, but they haven't been listening to the president. He has like a way of talking. And what he's saying, it's like when he told us stand back, stand by to the Proud Boys. Like, he wasn't saying like, yeah, get ready for war. It was kind of like a gaffe. It was, if you listen to that transcript, you'll understand what I'm saying. But with the president, he's saying that the hoax comes from Democrats saying that he's in the Epstein files as the pedophile.
Exactly.
That's his focus. That was like, hey, fuck you, it's a hoax, right? Yes. And I think that's where his focus is, because he's one of the ones that supported to release it. He had to sign it on his desk. If he was on it, listen, if I'm Donald Trump and I'm guilty of all this shit and the Epstein files, and this shit gets to my desk, I'm gonna veto it. I'm gonna fucking veto it. Yeah. I'm gonna make up an excuse and I'm gonna veto it. And be like, I didn't do it.
National security, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And let's lock this down. Oh my God! Right when I saw this, there's this national security thing. We got to lock it down. But that's what he was saying. But the DOJ was very, very slow in releasing the Epstein files, which again isn't my beat, but it is a priority, right? I think what made me, like, I was already passionate about fucking catching pedophile. I'm just going to use the word catching pedophiles. But when I went to prison, there was a whole new level of hate I had for these people, for these animals, these monsters. So I'm more passionate about it now. But when it comes, like I'm saying, when it comes to Epstein files specifically, I don't have time to sift through it. I don't have time to tell you who's this, who suicided themselves. Like, I let other people do that. I let other people, like Kim Coulter, which is a host on her network. She focuses on that. She reads through it. And I take her pointers. I'm like, okay, yeah, we hate this person. Well, Epstein, all right, we hate this person. This person's a pedo. That's where I'm at with it.
Right on, man. I appreciate your honesty and being upfront about that. And yeah, I think that like you said, yeah, just ensure that the people who need to be protected are protected, aka the victims, not the co-conspirators, and release it to the public and let us, make our draw our own conclusions based on the facts and the evidence. And
One part I do know, Chris, sorry to cut in. One
go
part
ahead.
I do know is that some of those victims turned into predators themselves.
Yes, yes.
Those should be protected. And I don't care what people say. I got pissed off when they said this. They're like, "Oh, but she was a victim of Epstein. She was like 15 or something when she first got like picked up, and then when she was 25, she was like picking up more underage girls
Yeah,
for
15-year-olds.
Epstein."
It's like, so
Like,
if that happened to you, you want to continue that, you want to perpetuate the cycle. I mean,
yeah,
if that had, if similar circumstances, I would want to do everything not to, but I guess,
firing squad. The only difference is like I'll put you in the second row, like the second set of people. Like you're the last one out of the chopper, right? I'll let you hang out for a little while longer, uh, because of all the pain and sorrow you went through. But I'm sorry you're still going out that chopper door.
Yeah, I agree. And so you touched on your the time you spent in prison. If you could just tell us about the time you spent, and then thinking you were facing 2 decades potentially behind bars. Did it change your perspective on the justice system, on life?
A little tidbit here. This isn't my first rodeo with the feds. I got arrested in 2013 for something I did do, a crime I did do, and I admitted. I took responsibility for it, and I did my time. And I already knew the system was screwed. As a matter of fact, when I ran my 2020 campaign, at the very top of my list was criminal justice reform. So I already knew it was screwed up. Now, I didn't know how deep the rabbit hole goes and how the Department of Justice focuses in on like political opponents and lies about them and incarcerates them for long periods of time. Um, Mandela, he wasn't he wasn't the best person in the world either, but like he was an opposition leader and they jailed him for decades. He's not a model citizen, but for the most part, he did 30 years and he came out and he became, the president of South Africa. Again, there's a lot that goes on with that, but regardless of the fact, this is a cycle, not just for the United States, this is globally. But the United States has perfected it. They've put it in a neat little bow. They've cleaned it up. They say, "Oh, well, we're the freest country in the world." Dude, I'd rather be in a prison in Venezuela or Colombia than a United States prison. Um,
Really?
I'll give you another example. Like we always talk about Russian gulags, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we talk about like Soviet gulags is really what we talk about, right? So I'm not saying that Russian prisons aren't bad, but I remember being in prison and I was on 24-hour lockdown. I wouldn't leave my room. I didn't get razor blades. I looked like fucking hell. My teeth are all fucked. They're still fucked up. I'm working on them. I got Invisalign. And then, that Wall Street Journal reporter got taken by the Russians. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
I always fuck up his name, but he got taken by the Russians. So I'm a subscriber to the Wall Street Journal, and I get the Wall Street Journal every day, and I get it. I open it, and they had a centerfold with his name Edwin. I forgot, whatever. And from his letters to his attorney, because they couldn't talk to anybody, he described his cell and he drew it. And it was talking about, like on the text, it's like, oh, look at the horrible conditions. And it was like he had a carpet, there was a refrigerator, there was a TV, and he's like, oh, it's dead quiet, it's so depressing. And like, I take myself out of the newspaper, I look at my cell, there's a whole bunch of people screaming outside, like some dude's banging his head against the door. I got no TV. I got this stale food passed out to me in a tray. He was describing his food, and I was like, wow, this sounds pretty good. Like, there's a microwave in his room. And I'm sitting there. My floor is
Tell them.
dirty. It's concrete. I'm like, fuck. I wish I was in a Russian prison. You know. And there has to be some serious reform. Actually, we're taking steps now where we've already sued the United States government for what they did to us, including the FBI. We're going to take steps in the next few weeks to sue the Bureau of Prisons.
I think that's well needed. I mean, I've never been to prison. I have had the unfortunate experience of going to jail a few times, and I mean, conditions there are disgusting,
Yeah.
and just unsanitary, dangerous, and
Like
yes,
prison, like jail is supposed to make you go, I don't want to go back, but it doesn't have to be that. It doesn't have to be that bad.
right.
Put a man in a cage, he goes crazy anyways. So just don't put him in a fucking dirty cage and feed him slop.
Exactly.
Have you been
And
on
talk to him
Twitter
like he's an
today?
animal, and treat him
Yeah,
like he's an animal, just that's one thing that just bothered me so much was the way that these guards would just scream at you and just talk to you like you're a slave, essentially.
yeah.
And really,
Have you been on Twitter today? Have you saw that fake news story about what they're feeding the Navy? And it's like a tray with like gray meat and like some carrots. Have you seen
no,
that?
no.
Yeah. So it's a fake story. It's like a prison tray, and they're like, oh, this is what they're feeding the sailors over there that are in the Strait of Hormuz or whatever. I'm like, dude, I ate that for 3 years of my life. And like somebody down there, somebody tagged me in another comment. They're like, because somebody's wrote, oh, what is that? What is that gray meat? And I like commented. I'm like, well, look, listen, I ate this for 3 years, and I still can't tell you what kind of meat this is. I can't even tell you if it's meat.
Oh my
You know,
god. Oh yeah, seriously.
it's
Oh.
horrible. It looks bad. You look it up. I'll send it to you after the show.
Please do, please do. So yeah, you were pardoned by President Trump. I remember we had you on the Matt Gates show. I think the day that you were pardoned, and
Correct.
I remember the joy that you expressed. So what have you been getting into since then, and what are your plans for the future?
Since then, I've been focused on. I always said that I was going to do two things: is one, tell my story, and two, sue the government, like get retribution for what it is. And people, I use that word, and people are like, "Oh my god, he says retribution." Retribution is accountability. That's all I want. So we've sued the federal government. I'm finishing up on my book now, and I'm finishing up on a documentary because I want to tell my story and I want to sue the government. And I've done both successfully. But outside of that, we started a community podcast network called the War Boy Studios. Um, I think you know Kim, right? Kim Coulter,
Yeah.
Kim met.
Hmm.
So Kim's part of the show, and the rest of the hosts are a bunch of J6ers, real fun dudes. And I do the news show every morning. Well, 3 times a week I do the news show. Um, and I'm just living it, man. I'm just enjoying life right now, exactly like I said that day when I talked to Matt.
Right on, man. And I'm very glad that Trump pardoned you. I like you said, we've known each other for a long time, and I can tell you're a salt of the earth, good person. You're good people, man, and I have a lot of respect for you. I have a lot of admiration for you. There's nothing wrong with wanting, retribution in the form of accountability. And yeah, I
Yeah,
think you deserve it. I think the entirety of our country deserves it. Deserves to see the people who, for example, locked our country down, and weaponized our government to be accountable. I don't think that's an unreasonable request in a constitutional republic. Will we
correct.
get it? We'll see. But Enrique, I want to thank you. And you have your book coming out, right? When is that? So
Yes.
can you give us some more details about that?
So while I was in prison, because I was in prison for 6 months for burning a BLM banner, and then I thought that was going to be the end of my story, and I get arrested for seditious conspiracy. In those 2 times, I put together 13 composition books, and writing my memoir, my story. I'm currently putting that together in one volume. That is mostly memoir and a part guide um, uh, for this world of politics. Uh, and you can find it at tarriobook.com. You can pre-order there. We're planning to ship out beginning of fall. I'm almost done completely with editing the book. I probably have like about another 6 weeks left. Then I got to start the audiobook. But it's my life's work. It's my life's work. tarriobook.com. I'm not trying to make, people think that you make millions of dollars off of books. You actually hardly make anything off the book. Pretty much, that's all I want. I just want my story told, because it's the first time, that I'm able to say my story. CNN has said my story. Fox News has said my story. And I think both of them are wrong on how they portray me. I'm an imperfect person. But I'm a person that's very passionate about what I do. And, I'm not new to this. I didn't get activated in 2016 with Donald Trump. I actually been in this since 2004. That's 22 years pretty much of activism, like straight street level activism for 22 years. And we go through, the memoir starts in 2016. There's some flashbacks. That is on the audiobook. It's going to be portrayed by somebody much younger, but I will be doing my own part in the audiobook. So please go grab it, tarriobook.com, and support me and support my story.
Well, yeah, I think it's a story that really needs to be told. It's an incredible one, and I certainly look forward to reading it and listening to it as well, because I want to hear your narration. Enrique Tarrio, thank you so much for joining the ChrisInformation podcast. By the way, I just really quickly, you're a Star Wars fan, so I got to ask you, who is your all-time favorite Star Wars villain?
Oh, villain. Oh man, it's got to be Maul. It's got to be Maul.
That's a good choice.
Yeah, I thought you were gonna say like all-time character. That would be Ahsoka. That's really nerdy. But yeah, I'm a big Star Wars nerd. I told you. I'll tell your audience here. And now I guess they'll start catching on. But every time I speak at an event, I always lay down like a little quote, one that you'll hardly ever catch. Like everybody knows the big quotes, like boom, the father line, but there's lines in the movie that I use inside some of my speeches, and they've gone unnoticed for almost 10 years.
Well, be on the lookout for that, everybody. Enrique, thank you so much, man, for taking the time. Really do appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you, man.
Absolutely.
2023 Vulture, which is a fitting name for an entertainment news outlet.
Hey guys, if you're still here, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, do all these things, or whatever platform you're watching this. Spread this far and wide, because it really helps me out, and I appreciate it. Thank you so much again. This is not misinformation. This is not disinformation. Only ever ChrisInformation, guys. Stay Chris informed. Have a great night.